Yo, it's Raddy, and in this video I'm going to be covering the main differences between a conventional running shoe, that is the A6 Gel Blackhawk, versus a minimalist running shoe. This is a Skora Phase. So right off the bat we can see that there's a huge height difference in the heels and even in the toes in these shoes. And that's one of the main differences between a minimalist shoe versus a non-minimalist shoe, is that a minimalist shoe will put you really close to the ground. It's going to have very little sole protection, so you can take the shoe and bend it, versus a conventional shoe that's going to be a lot more stiff and rigid. There's a lot less cushioning on the inside versus a conventional shoe. And so you may be wondering, well, why do I care? What difference does it make if I have more cushion, less cushion, more bend, less bend? Well, here's some of the main differences. For starters, your foot is just like your hand. It's very sensitive. There's a lot of nerve endings on the bottom of your foot. It needs to constantly receive feedback from the ground to provide your brain an idea of where your body is in space. This is proprioception. If you wear a cushioned shoe, it's like walking on a pillow. There's not a lot of information being read by the bottom of your foot. If you imagine wearing a glove over your hand your whole life, every time you go outside and you come back inside, your hands are like, they're not as sensitive, they're not as easy to work with. That's the same thing with the bottom of your foot. The bottom of your foot in an ideal situation should just be straight up contacting the ground whenever possible. But the more separation and distance you create, the more of a brain barrier there is between the ground and your foot, which causes problems with proprioception and your body's ability to tell where you are in space. The more cushion you have in your shoe, the less ability you'll have to sense balance in the bottom of your foot. So imagine, or you can go try this yourself, is if you stand on a pillow, how easy is it to balance, like on one leg, versus just standing flat on the ground? I'm betting you it's a lot easier to stand on a hard surface with your foot just straight up touching the ground versus standing on a cushioned surface. One key thing to note about sneakers when you're using them for athletic purposes or even just walking around is that when you take something like your foot and you add extra inches to it, so imagine you're wearing a high heel and you sprain your ankle, you twist it, there's a lot more torque going into your foot because there's more distance from your heel to the ground, versus something like this, when you twist your foot, it's going to almost immediately hit the ground, compared to something like this, which is going to have more time and more torque going into it. So something like this could increase the damage done by a sprained ankle, and something like this could reduce the damage done by basically going into a sprained ankle position. The heel drop in the shoe, that is how much height the heel has versus how much height the toes have from the ground, is important. Imagine you're wearing high heels all day, every day for your entire life. You're going to be shortening your Achilles tendon here systematically throughout your whole life. So wearing a shoe like this basically reduces the range of motion in your ankles because it doesn't give you that full flatness that a minimalist shoe will give you. I've covered the main differences between a minimalist shoe and a regular shoe, but now something to consider is that when you go running in a running shoe, it's basically like putting a safety net around your foot. It means it's going to let your body do stupid things. If you go run on concrete barefoot or tile or hardwood floor, and you're traditionally a heel striker, that means when you run, you land with your heel first and then your toe. This puts a lot of pressure on your ankles, knees, and hips, versus landing on your toes. It lets you use your muscles and tendons as a spring system instead of slamming into the joints and tendons. So if you're a heel striker, go try this. Having a shoe with a lot of cushion is gonna let you heel strike. I personally don't think heel striking is a very good thing, but I'm not going to go into that in this video. So you can try an experiment, go outside, run on concrete, or if you have hardwood floor or tiles, try and do like a medium jog to high speed kind of pace and see if you still heel strike. Because I'm guaranteeing you, if you run barefoot quickly, you're not going to be heel striking because you don't have this protection. This is basically like a safety net, like a boot protecting your foot, allowing you to heel strike. If you switch to a minimalist shoe or run barefoot quickly, so I'm not saying like a slow jog, yeah, maybe you can land on your heels, but like a quick run, you're not going to be smashing into your heels barefoot on concrete or some hard surface. So by having like a minimalist shoe, you're going to be encouraging a forefoot or midfoot strike. Encouraging, not necessarily forcing. You still need to work on your own technique, but it's something you can try out. This is a very important part, some safety recommendations. I don't recommend that you just go straight from one of these to one of these, because you will likely injure yourself. I had a friend who basically switched to Vibrams, those 5-toe shoes. Those are minimalist shoes as well. and he ran 10K the next day in them and got a foot fracture. If you've been spending your whole life in one of these, you can't just switch to one of these overnight. Your body will not be able to handle it. So what I recommend is if you do buy one of these, you break them in slowly, don't wear them out throughout the day. You know, start with like 20 minutes, slowly build up. If you're a competitive runner, there are some advantages to this, there's some advantages to this. You need to find that mid-ground of where you are with your own training. When I ran my first marathon, I had very little training, I didn't have strong feet, and I was fortunate enough to buy like a really strong shoe like this with a lot of padding and a lot of cushion. Even though I wanted to buy a minimalist shoe, I went with one of these, and thank God, because my feet were destroyed afterwards. If I wasn't wearing something with a lot of protection, then I know I would have probably broken my foot or caused some serious damage running a marathon in one of these with the little amount of training I had. So are there benefits to having this? Yes, if you've been spending your whole life in this, you can't just switch right away to something like this. However, you would want to gradually progress yourself from this to this. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time.